Good morning everyone, I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. Now we've got a lot to talk about, so I'll just get right into it. Over the course of 2016, from February the 1st to December the 1st, composer, multi-instrumentalist and producer Adam Young released one conceptual film score a month. Each score reflected a particular moment or event in history that Adam Young found particularly inspiring. And in this video, I'm going to be reviewing them. I'll talk a little bit about each one in order, I'll tell you what my favourite tracks were and why, and then at the end I'm going to go through them from 11 to 1 in order of which one I enjoyed the most. In case you don't know who Adam Young is, he is most well known for being Owl City. And I absolutely f***ing love Owl City. Well, most of it. I've got both of these records and this is one of my most listened to albums of all time. I didn't buy the Midsummer Station on vinyl because it's shit. Like, not total shit, but really bad comparatively to the works he released previously. And his most recent album, Mobile Orchestra, which I might have bought had it been released on vinyl but it wasn't, is also not a very good album. It's better than the Midsummer Station, but nowhere near as good as any of the releases prior to that. I've been a follower of Adam Young for years, and the things that I actually arguably enjoy more than Owl City are his less known projects. These are almost exclusively instrumental projects, and they're so fantastic. They're things like Port Blue, Insect Airport, Key Harn, Novel, Windsor Airlift, Aquarium, Seagull Orchestra, Dolphin Park. There are loads of them, and I feel like both myself and lots of other old school fans of Adam Young have been wanting some new Port Blue music at the very least for a really long time. So when he announced his score project, I was really excited because I was like, yeah, we can finally hear some really good Adam Young music. And it did not disappoint. Bloody hell, my hair is a total mess at the moment, I'm really sorry, I've just got out of the shower. So without any further ado, let's start at the beginning. The first score released on February the 1st of 2016 was Apollo 11. Now this was obviously inspired by the lunar landing that took place between the 16th and the 24th of July 1969. This was fantastic, it's ambitious, it's big, it's bombastic, especially in the opening track. It sounded like exactly what I was expecting to hear from an Adam Young film score. As well as the orchestral side of things, there's also a fair bit of guitars, percussion, synthesizers, especially on tracks like Trajectory Burn. The whole score was molded together really well, and there was a lovely contrast between the kind of more bombastic, loud orchestral side of things and the quieter, atmospheric and more minimal elements. Favorite three tracks on this are Launch, First Step on the Surface and Return to Earth. I love the string introduction in the second repetition of the main sort of bass line in Return to Earth. It's so nice. Next we have the RMS Titanic, which was his March score. It's pretty obvious what the general theme of this one is. Now to me, this one felt much more like a conventional film score. There were recurring and developing themes throughout, and the whole thing was practically entirely orchestral. The only thing I didn't like on this score was his use of Nearer My God to Thee on the track Lifeboats. Like, that's an amazing piece of music, but I felt like it was a little bit too obvious and cliche for him to use that in this. The track Lookout Duty sounds very Thomas Newman-esque in parts, and Captain Edward Smith has got some of the most well-produced and lush sounding piano I've ever heard. Overall, I absolutely loved this score. My top three tracks on it are Captain Edward Smith, Distress Call, which is really emotive, and Silence, in which the flute solo when that comes in is kind of just a stroke of pure genius. The third score that he released was called The Spirit of St. Louis. This was inspired by Charles Lindbergh's solo transatlantic flight from New York to Paris in 1927. People really liked this one when it first came out. The first track has actually got some of Adam's vocals on it, albeit very stuttered and percussive, but it has a really cool, energetic feel to the start. The first track is just such a good opener, and it's got a really good contrast between the really energetic stuff, and then it fades out to a softer piano bit, and then it gets energetic again. It's just really good. I feel like that track will appeal to a lot of Port Blue nostalgia. Again, this score is still very orchestral based. The track Overwater sounds almost like it could come from Finding Nemo, more Thomas Newman inspiration. There are also some really nice atmospheric drone tracks in this. Now, one of the things that caught a lot of people's attention with this score is that the final track, Wheels Down, is actually a reworking of an old Port Blue track called Seagulls. Seagulls is one of my favourite Port Blue tracks, and while on this score it sounds amazing and obviously it's really well produced, I actually prefer the original. Adam shortened sections of it down, and he also added in these really annoying glissandos everywhere with the strings when they go up to the higher notes, and I kind of just didn't like it very much. Like, don't get me wrong, it is an amazing track, I absolutely love it. I just preferred slightly the older version. Favourite three tracks on this are Overwater, I love the backing guitar vibes on that. Stars Appear, which the synth, that cheeky little synth that comes in, it just makes my day whenever I hear it. And Wheels Down, which despite my criticisms, I still love. The fourth score in this project was called The Ascent of Everest. Unsurprisingly, this is about a New Zealand beekeeper and a Nepalese Sherpa's ascent on Mount Everest in 1953. Wow, what a stark departure from the previous scores. I really liked this. It was such a nice contrast to what we'd already heard. It was much shorter than the previous scores as well. There are only 7 tracks on this one. It sounds a bit more Adam Young in terms of production, with the synths and the guitar riffs, heavy beats and percussion throughout most of the tracks. I love this one. My only criticism is it wasn't really like listening to a film score. Tracks like South Col and The Summit are effectively just awesome post-rock rock songs. But that doesn't matter because it was just really, really good. Favorite 3 tracks on this are Base Camp, which ironically kind of sounds like you're underwater. Kumba Icefall, I love it when the beat comes in that track and the background ambient droney noises kind of get sidechained. And The Summit, which is just a super, super cool track. His May score was called Omaha Beach, which surprisingly enough was about the 1944 Omaha Beach landing in World War II. Not sure about this one. It's a very difficult thing to write about well, especially considering that his primary production style tends to be more around the softer side of things rather than heavy, extreme, intense music. I do think he did a relatively good job, I just didn't find it that engaging. There's lots of really gritty, crescendoing distortion. It's very sonically abrasive, which I guess is exactly what he was going for. The violence in the music definitely reflects the subject matter, but it's just not something I could sit down and listen to very often. In tracks like On the Beach, the distorted sounds are very effective in mimicking sort of the shell fire that you get on the beach. Very good atmosphere creation. Although saying that atmosphere is occasionally permeated with very, very gentle melodic piano interludes. And there are definitely points when this does sound like a legitimate film score for a war movie. Favorite tracks on this are On the Beach, Troops Advance, which I think has a really nice development throughout it, and The Longest Day, which is a really nice kind of rounded closer to it. His next score was called Miracle in the Andes, and this was based around the 1972 Andes flight disaster. When I saw that was the theme, I was actually really curious as to whether or not he would have written a track about cannibalism. He didn't. This was another score that I wasn't totally convinced by. Once again, there are lots of ambient drones and gradual build-ups that do a really good job of creating atmosphere, but it wasn't something that I found totally engaging. It contrasts big, rich soundscapes with delicate piano instrumentals. It's good, and I think maybe I would have enjoyed it more had it not come just after the Omaha Beach score, which I didn't really enjoy either. Yeah, I enjoyed it, it just wasn't the most captivating of his scores, and also, he totally ripped off Harry Gregson Williams on the track The Tale. All I'm gonna say is listen to The Tale, and then listen to the track Making Water from Harry Gregson Williams' score for The Martian. You might notice a few similarities. By the way, I'm not accusing Adam Young of directly copying someone else's work, it's just they coincidentally sound quite similar. Favourite tracks on that are The Fairchild, I really like it when the piano comes in, The Tale, and The Rider, which I absolutely love. I actually think that's almost like the sort of redeeming track on that score. It's a fantastic piece, it's epic, and it has such good instrumentation. The next score was called Project Excelsior, and this was about Joe Kittinger's very famous parachute jump in 1960. The one where he was lifted up in a helium balloon to the very, very edge of the Earth's atmosphere, and then he jumped off like a f***ing madman. This score was a very nice contrast to the previous two, which were very drony and atmospheric. This one was a bit more structured. It opens with the tempo track, the pilot. It's got that really cool palm muted guitar delay effect. Now this score I was very hot and cold about. Some of it I thought was absolutely brilliant, and other parts of it I didn't really enjoy. There are sections of very sort of unwed sailor inspired acoustic guitar parts, which I still haven't really made up my mind if I like them or not. Like the second half of the track The Ascent, I just can't get into at all. This score seemed a lot more beat orientated than some of the previous releases, and it felt like it wasn't so much a film score but more a collection of instrumental songs, which is fine. There were some really cool post-rock vibes in tracks like The Jump, and also some classic Adam Young synth sounds coming through, which I really liked. Favourite tracks on this are The Pilot, Helium Balloon, which was formerly called Snowfall, and he released like a teaser of it ages ago, and The Descent. The next score he released was called Corduroy Road, and was about the American military general William Sherman and the final march of the American Civil War. Now where the did this come from? This score blew my mind a little bit. I absolutely loved this. It's got these amazing sort of country vibes to it, and it's a perfect example of him trying to do something that's maybe slightly out of his comfort zone, or tackling an unusual source of inspiration and getting it right. Unlike Omaha Beach, which I sort of thought was a valiant attempt, this one he just completely pulled it off. Some of the tracks on here are basically just songs. There's a really cool bit in I think the second track where you can actually hear him singing in the background, and he says, "My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord." The vibes and the atmosphere of this album are just so good, and I really wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. He said on social media before it's released that he'd been doing a lot of acoustic guitar work for it, and because I didn't like the acoustic guitar on the previous score, I was really skeptical about it. But it was so good, it was just brilliant. Also, I noticed that Up With The Stars is, I'm fairly certain, an adaptation of a sort of old Scottish folk song called Loch Lomond, I think. The only thing that I didn't like about this score was at the very end of March to the Sea, he introduces this synth thing that's supposed to obviously represent the stars, and I just wasn't a fan. I just didn't really like the sounds that he'd used. That's basically my only criticism of that whole score. Favourite tracks on that are Country Hymn, which just makes me feel both sad and happy all at the same time, which is confusing but also lovely. Deep South, the cheeky synth that comes in that is a really nice contrast. And Fall of the Confederacy, which is such a nice closer, and it just makes me miss my friends, and I don't even quite know why. The next score we're going to talk about is Voyager 1, which was a 1977 NASA space probe that was sent out to explore and study the outer realms of our solar system. This is basically just a Port Blue album. Here's a list of some of the tracks on this album and what they used to to be called. 1977 is in fact base jumping from the Port Blue Pacific EP, Asteroid Belt was called Junebug, Saturn was called The Sky Bridge, and Interstellar Space used to be called Apple from his project Insect Airport. Now him including that track I absolutely loved. Insect Airport is arguably my favourite of the Adam Young side projects. He only ever released 4 songs under that title, called Apple, Grape, Orange and Strawberry, and I absolutely love the fact that he re-released Apple. It's one of my favourite of his tracks. Although he did shorten sections of it, and he took out the line that in the original version you can just very, very faintly hear him saying, "Asleep on the dining room floor, the world turns softly." He's clearly been coming up with adjectives to describe how the world turns for quite some time. This one doesn't feel anything like a film score. It isn't really a film score. At most I would say it's a film soundtrack. This is effectively a really, really good Port Blue album. I loved it, and I also think it will sort of acted as respite for people who weren't really into his orchestral and really more experimental things and wanted to kind of just hear some Port Blue. Favourite tracks on this are 1977, Europa, I really, really love the complex percussion that comes in that, and Interstellar Space. The penultimate score in this project was called Mount Rushmore, which surprisingly enough was based around the 1927 to 1941 construction of Mount Rushmore in the USA. In a very stark contrast to Voyager 1, this one takes us back into feeling like we're listening to a film score. Lots of orchestration, lots of dynamic range and developments, just a really, really good sounding piece of work. The track Dynamite highlights some of the more complex and advanced composing that I've ever heard from Adam. It's just really good. Obviously there are some nice soft moments, but it's kind of in your face, loud, bombastic orchestral music, and I just really, really like it. Also, really interestingly, at the 1 minute mark in track Guts on Borglum, he effectively uses the same time signature and chord progression as he does in the bridge section of the song The Real World from his album All Things Bright and Beautiful. Seriously, you can like sing the vocal line along to the track in the score. Favourite tracks on this are Construction, I really like the percussion in that. Four Faces, it's got some of the sort of traditional Adam Young sounding synths in it, and Shrine of Democracy, which is seriously fucking epic. And finally, the last score that he released for this project on December the 1st, 2016 was called The Endurance. This was about the 1914 Voyager, the Endurance, getting stuck in ice 200 miles away from its destination. Straight off the bat, this is an interesting score because it's one of the only ones that's got really obvious, prominent actual vocals in it. You get the privilege of hearing some classic Adam Young dadas in the track Shackleton. This is another sort of traditional orchestral based score, and it kind of brings us back to what the first three were like. But it's got some really nice moments both orchestrally and in more atmospheric side of things. He's a big fan of using felt pianos for more atmospheric stuff. He's done it in other scores, but this score is probably the most prominent example of that. Also, the track She's Going Boys is an adaptation of the Windsor Airlift track A Lovely Wedding, Snow and Sky. Windsor Airlift actually commented on their Facebook page about this, and I kind of was worried that they had some sort of beef with each other, but I think it's fine. I don't know. Favourite tracks on this are Ocean Camp. I love it when that synth comes in, it's absolutely beautiful. She's Going Boys and South Georgia. South Georgia is just so epic and awesome, and it just really closes off the whole score project really, really nicely. So there we go. That's the scores talked about. I'm going to put them in order of my least favourites to my most favourite now. Just to clarify, I pretty much think they're all really, really good. It's not like the ones at the bottom of the list I just don't like and I don't listen to. They're just the ones that I don't find as engaging as some of the others and that I don't listen to as much. So in reverse order, we have Omaha Beach, Miracle in the Andes, Project Excelsior, Mount Rushmore, The Endurance, Voyager 1, The Ascent of Everest, Apollo 11, The Spirit of St. Louis, RMS Titanic, and in my number one spot, Corduroy Road. And I wasn't expecting that to be there, but it's just, I absolutely love it so much. So there we have it. That is my review of the Adam Young 2016 score project. It was really, really amazing to get so much new music from him on a monthly basis. The artwork for it by James R. Eads, I hope that's pronounced correctly, was absolutely stunning as well. And I am planning on buying a couple of my favourite artwork prints from the project. It was just such a cool project, and I can't wait to see what Adam Young has in store for us all next. Let me know what you think. I would love to hear what your favourites were, and if you disagree with anything I've said. Obviously, this has all just been my subjective opinion on things, and you may have a completely different viewpoint. And if that's the case, I would love to hear why, so just let me know down in the comment section. I'll also have a link in the description to the website for this project where you can find all of the music that I've been talking about. Adam Young actually made it available for free download, which was so cool. So if you haven't heard any of these scores before, I really highly suggest that you go and check some of them out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day, and I will see you all very soon.